Hello, Danielle.
Hi. Woo!
You're here, you're here, you're here.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
We're so excited to have you on the show as well. So, thank you so much for being here. We are going to have a phenomenal conversation. So,
Yeah.
I would love for you to share with us. I usually ask one question, but I'm going to sneak one more in there. I would love for you to tell our listeners how we know each other
Mm.
and, your kind of, like your relationship view of us, because I always love how people find each other. I always love how synchronicities work, and we have been on a journey together, and I would love for you to share that journey, one or two sentences or 10, whatever you think is it's the best.
You know me. I like to speak. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, like I'll go right back to the beginning. We were at the same high school together, different grades, and like so knew each other that way from a more general space, I would say, like just
Yeah.
kind of each other. And then whatever like life happened and went its different directions, and then reconnected like about 4 years ago, and literally like
Yes.
quite like, you
Yeah.
know, path split, whatever.
Yeah.
And then connected in more of like a business sense through meeting you through another friend, who had talked all about like this coaching session that she thought I would love, like based on my interests and stuff. And I was a little bit like, oh my God, like, I don't know. It sounded kind of cool, but I wasn't sure. And we hadn't connected in years. So I was really like nervous to just see what that would be like. And I knew it would take a bit of vulnerability. And it was like, oh
Mm,
my gosh, I haven't talked to a lot of people about my stuff, right?
right.
And there was a lot going on in my world at that time. So yeah, so we really reconnected through the coaching realm. And
Hmm.
then in, not so many words, it just brought me on this beautiful path of like healing so much of myself
Mm.
so that I could like attract the life and love that I had always desired but didn't know was possible till I met you.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
truly.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So
now and then yeah.
So where are you now in the world of relationships?
Yeah, so I am 2 and a bit years in with my romantic partner, Kyle, and so exciting. And we're living together for over a year now, and just like excited for the future and for what that holds. And it also sort of brought out more of my purpose and passion of um, gearing my coaching business towards relationships.
Yes.
And really, it's like the three tiers, like the relationship with ourselves is number one. So that,
Hmm.
first aspect with especially women, and then that relationship with our partner, spouse, and how can um, I help support women in healing that relationship and seeing what else is possible. Because I think we can get really into those like everyday life cycles and forget what it was like at the beginning, or that, it can be that spicy again, and just sort of get into those spaces. And then, yeah. And like, of course, family relationships and those dynamics as well. So
Hmm.
I'm just super passionate. I also had a past career in wedding and event planning. So like
Yes.
relationships has been my life.
It really, really has, honestly. Like when you think
Yeah.
back to all of the things that lead us to where we are right now. Yeah, it just gives me like super big goosebumps to think about where you're at and what we're going to talk about
Dude,
today.
oh my God, it's crazy.
So I am going to start with my first question for you is, what does redefining motherhood mean to you?
For sure. So I might even have a bit of a different take than some, because redefining motherhood for me, I think, starts before a baby is born, which for the listeners, we might have gotten to that later, but that is where I'm at right now, is that I am now really excited about the possibility of motherhood. But I'll be honest, like it has not been that way for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And even I'm even finding myself recently sort of shocked at what this excitement looks like for me, because it's, I'll be honest, foreign to me. So
Hmm.
redefining motherhood for me is about like even the journey to becoming a mother, and
Yes,
that we,
yes.
right, and we can all have our own individual experience as to what it looks like and how we become mothers and what type of mom we are. And um so my journey has looked like being fortunate to do that work and some of that digging and clarifying, and then coming to beautiful platforms like yours to be able to pave my path before that child is even born.
All the feels right now. Pave that path. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. This makes me so excited because I remember, I know my specific journey of like what it meant to even think about having children and what that would look like. And I remember before even meeting Brandon, I was like, yeah, no, like these are my cats, these are your grandchildren, bye kind of thing. And there was this, like, looking back, I don't think I knew this at the time, but looking back, I'm like, oh, there was this whole part of me that was like shut down that I didn't know was accessible. So when I hear you say the things like possibility, it's like, yeah, that journey of loving myself and really diving into like, what does Nicole want and what is possible for Nicole? And then there's like this whole other thing. And then I invite Brandon into my life. And then I was like, oh my gosh, the possibility of having a family actually feels real. I'm not saying that happens to everybody, because everybody can choose to consciously not have children or to have them. But that's what it was like for me. It was like, when you say possibility, oh my goodness, that just brings back a flood of memories. So I'm just so grateful to dive into that conversation, because the journey of becoming a mother before you even like have a baby in the belly is such a journey. In itself, it is a journey.
Fucking journey.
It's so funny because Danielle was like, can I swear on your podcast? I'm like, yes, dude. I'm like, I know you have listened and you know you have heard me swear. Yes. But so why don't you share with us? So I hear you on the journey of becoming a mother and like really truly getting excited about motherhood, and truly paving that path. What would you say before you were excited? Where were you?
Oh my God. Yeah. Goosebumps. Where was I before discovering that? I mean, like, there were many years before I even met my partner that I just didn't believe it was possible for me, likely more from a competence level, not from like a physiology or that, like more from a, how the heck can I like be a mother to something else? Lots of limits on what I could be, and not seeing myself for like all of what I could be. Yeah, so that for sure. And that of course shows up in different areas. Um, Also, I think it's important to say too, everybody's journey looks different in the time, I think, if and when they're going to get to that point. And so for me, I spent many years in a very independent space. And I want to say, especially to listeners that are maybe in that space now, it's okay. It's okay to be independent and to feel like that is where you're at. And that's the space that you're in right now. Like that's absolutely okay. Because I went on quite a long journey of that. And to the point where even now looking back, as my life has shifted and, you know, some of the ways that I was more independent then have shifted. But it's like really looking at just how the lifestyle shifts. And I just believe you get to a point in life where you're just ready for that next stage of life, you know, and you've like, oh, that when you fully embrace it. Right. But before that, I think it was part of my being in that comfort zone of like, no, I'm good. Like this independent thing works for me. And it was like fierce independence, so much so even that it was a bit of a thing that I was able to work through to even receive romantic love in my life. Because I see it all the time. Like we can wear that I can wear that independence. And I don't want to speak for others, but for myself, for sure, wore that independence as that badge. Which I think, yes, hell yes. Like, let's be independent. Let's be individuals. Let's get so clear on what I want as a human and as an individual and as a woman. And then welcome in what we truly want and desire. And I think somewhere along the way, like there was something that came in for me anyways of like, oh, well, you know, I should kind of not consciously, I didn't consciously know this at the time, but like somewhere there was some kind of BS that was like imprinted in to say like, you don't deserve it all, or like, oh, like you know, I just think of limits keeps coming up for me. Like they're consistently, we're like, oh, yeah, but you can only have this, or you can only have that. That is such a big passion of mine. Like, no, let's stop that. Like, you can be the mom, be the business owner, be whatever you want to be, and whatever you want that to look like. Those are just such like two very few examples. But I really felt like I could either have the business or the family, or the partner love, or the independence. And I'm slowly learning that it gets to be an amalgamation of all the things.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps. Because I think too, like growing up with so many conditions, I thought that, it had to be a certain way, or I was so determined to do it differently that I was like, I have to have this much money in the bank, and I have to have this much success in the business, and I can only have this, and then I can, it's like those thoughts that you think. And I think they serve a purpose. I think intention is really important. But there was another thing, like when you say the limits, because then I look at where I'm at in my life now. Before Hannah was here, I remember thinking, but what if, this is my favorite thing to say, what if my success is to come after becoming a mother? Like, what if this whole fear of I have to have everything together and my whole life together what if the success and the potential and the possibilities are all meant to come, and they're designed to come after she's born? It didn't make sense in my mind. Like the how, I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. There's no possible way. And now I'm here 2 years in, and I'm like, oh shit, there is a fucking way, and I'm fucking doing it. This is fucking wild.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just interesting. Like when you say the imprints of the BS, like when you really stop to think about what are those limitations, or what are the beliefs that we're carrying around motherhood, around business, around love. Oh shit. Like there's so many possibilities there.
Totally. Yeah.
What do you think has been the biggest thing for you? Not so much you and your partner, because I think that's a whole other layer, but what do you think the biggest thing for you was that kind of just like opened up and was like, I'm excited? What do you think it was, like the turning, one of our friends, Oz would say the TSN turning point. What was the TSN turning point for you?
That's a good question. I'm going to be totally transparent right now. It's newer, totally. I would say I had a pretty big, awareness sort of recently that I'm happy to share. It probably started about a year ago. So I might need a minute on that to think of where that came from. But I know that, I think it started with a few people commenting on how good of a mother I would be.
Ooh,
and
cool.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like before, if anybody had said that, I would totally like brush it off, blow it off, think all the limits in my head, right? And not really accept it. And more recently, I've heard that a few times, and I've totally embraced it. And I've felt this like inside out glow, like an excitement. So it was like that external thing that really, I started to see the difference in what was possible, I would say. And like another kind of, so I don't know if it's one specifically, but so there was that. And then like even just becoming close with a couple of our friends' children recently. And like, I can think of this one family in particular, because that's where, again, a belief of mine that I think stems into the motherhood piece is that it's like, sometimes you have this vision of how you think it could be, but if you haven't seen anybody else kind of live it or do it, and you're totally one of those people too, is that if you haven't seen it modeled for you, this is me, right? If I haven't seen it modeled for myself, it's kind of stuck up in my head. And then I go about my business and live life and think of maybe what's not possible. And then as soon as I start to see people that are modeling for me what is possible, I start to see what's also possible for me. So in becoming close with those families and building those relationships and, these little ones, and just feeling lit up, like I do believe something sort of clicked about a year ago that just started this transition. And I think at the heart of it, it's that like love for myself and belief in myself that really turned everything. And then also so what I was sharing earlier, the big moment recently that happened was, it was like just this moment, there was a lot of emotions. I was like moving through some different emotions, and I don't even remember, to be honest, what it was about. And I was going for a walk here in my town, and I was just about to get home, and I literally and proverbially turned a corner, and it just clicked that I so wanted to start a family and to be a mom. And I had never admitted that to myself before. So that's probably the biggest turning moment, because that's recent and that's real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was in denial about it.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, like, admitting it out loud.
For myself. It wasn't for
Yes.
anybody else, which is
No.
fucking cool. It
No, it was
wasn't for
just
my
all
mom or
you.
for my
Yes.
partner, nobody. It was like, holy shit, I've been denying myself this and making the excuses of the other things, like you said, business or whatever else, life circumstances, that I realized were just keeping me, prolonging me from something that I really, really wanted.
Like desire.
Desire. Yes. Fuck. Yeah, exactly.
Yo, are you reading that
Desire.
book? Mama Gina's book?
Yes, I've
Okay.
started it. Yep, yep,
Okay.
yep.
So
I'm
yeah.
early on, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just this idea of like desires, right? And like the conditionings that have been put on us, nobody's fault by any means, just this conditions of being a
Mhm.
woman and like truly having these desires. It's like we kind of like say, okay, I'm going to pick this path and this is the path that I'm going to choose. And anything other than that is like it's not for me, and really starting to live in this way of like, well, what do I desire? Because if I desire to be a fierce independent woman and be on my own, then that's fucking what I desire. And I can
Mhm.
also desire to be a fierce interdependent woman with a partner of my
Yes.
dreams, and we can choose to have a family in whatever way that we want. And it's like living within that desire, because I think where a lot of the struggles come from for me, I'll say, is like this expectation of what I think the family is supposed to be. Because like you said
Mhm.
around modeling, it's like I only had really like well, I think we only ever have that, but like we
Yeah.
only model after our family. And so it's like, well, if it's not that way, then what is the way? And so
Exactly.
this brings me back to how important it is for community, how important it is for sisterhood, how important it is
Mhm.
for us to be in a community that says, yeah, you can do it too. And maybe I'm not doing it the same way that I was raised to do it, but I could do it that way. And that way feels really good for me. And it comes back, and I wrote this down a few times, how important it is to be within a safe community to see what is possible. That's what you wrote. You said, what is possible for
Yeah.
me when it's modeled, right? And that's just that important piece of learning and growth and evolution. And oh gosh, it just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Totally. And yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Okay. Yeah. A minute ago, you were saying something that just jumped out at me too about uh, so often living in the black or white,
Oh,
right
yes.
or wrong, yes or
Yeah.
no, like pivotal one way or the other. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, what about that fucking gray matter? What about the unique way that life and family looks and
Yeah.
can look
Yep.
for every individual? Yeah.
Yeah. And truly accepting that and embracing it. I think it was a big word you said too, was embracing it and receiving
Mm,
it the way that feels good for us. And I think a lot of that has to start with getting to know who we are, falling in love with ourselves, leading with
mhm.
desire, which are all things that we have not been taught to do. We have not really,
Exactly.
we didn't go to school to be like, hey, what do you feel like doing today? It was like, you're going to do math and
No.
you're going to do English and you're going to learn all of it in French and not remember it 20 years later. That's me.
Exactly. Totally.
so it's just this whole other way of doing things, and finding the peace in that, and also knowing that there's going to be we're going to come up against our shit, of course.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when you think about this excitement for creating your family as a solopreneur, what are the things that come up with that? Because I have to assume that there are moms out there, and soon to be moms, who are going, well, I'm in business and I don't know how to make it work. I don't understand how all this is going to happen. Where are you at on that whole line of thoughts or thinking? Or
To be honest, right now, I'm more leaned back, I would say. Like I'm trying not to try figure it out. Like I'm
Yes.
intentionally like start with the desire. Like I have spent so much of my life trying to figure everything out, know what to do, what to say, where to go, who to be for others. And it's been a lot of work on figuring out what I want for myself. And now that I know, I just want to let it happen. Like, oh my God, I don't want to force it.
Yes.
Yeah, who is this girl?
Oh my gosh, I don't want to force it and I just want to let it happen. Total feminine, right? Like there's so much
Yeah.
power in that surrendering and trusting in that
Mhm.
masculine and feminine energy, right? So, my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness,
exactly.
what a huge like win. Oh my goodness.
Totally. Like I have a first intention in some pieces, but yeah, like it's just I think it had to get to this point though too because of all of the other things I've tried to force or make happen in my life. And I by all means think there's got to be a harmony and a balance there, of course, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
we need action and inspired action and all that. Um, and I think that everything was lining up to get me to this point because I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine how much more difficult it would be um, to be. And hey, I'm the first one to say, let's see what happens, right? Like this is
Yep.
only the beginning for sure. Um, but especially, yeah, for those like listening that aspire for, um, whatever family looks like to them and what they want to create is there's a lot of power in surrendering and letting go and
Mm-hmm.
leaning back. And then just like I experienced in manifesting my partner and business and things like then when you do that letting go and surrender, holy shit, the magic is so much better than you could have ever imagined.
Mm.
And if the forcing is there and the pressure, we could be limiting ourselves to like more abundance that is waiting for us in all areas of life and especially in what our journey to have a family is going to be.
Mm. Okay, so let's go back. Let's talk about the manifestation of the partner because that is fucking magic and that deserves some airtime. And I think too, like it duplication, right? Like we can duplicate what we've
Yes.
done in one area and make it happen in another. So I would love for you, if you're open, to share the journey of manifesting your partner because gosh, oh my God, I have goosebumps everywhere. Like, girl, that is yes, yes, yes. Queen energy right there.
Yeah.
I know, like, where do you
Wow.
start? But
Yeah, like it was quite a journey. Okay, so it might not make logical sense or like a linear path, okay?
yeah.
But I think our listeners need to know that's kind of what happens in life. So yeah, it started with making the decision, choosing myself, realizing that I was in a relationship, I was about to be married, and I had always believed in like this uh, deeper connected true love. And I think that the steps to getting there were to first choosing myself and saying, okay, I believe what I believe. So instead of settling, I'm going to choose myself. And then no matter what the journey looks like, if that future partner comes into my life or not, I know I'll be okay on my own. And I
Mm,
think that that is like a foundational piece is that like, you're going to be okay either way. And then
yes.
yeah, and like that's where like the building of the love of self really had to start and stem in. So it was a lot of work on myself and building up trust again. And it was funny because it often sounded like trust in another that I was trying to overcome, but it was really always like trusting myself,
Mm,
trusting that I would either not choose a wrong partner or make mistakes or whatever, because there was a lot there. um but also just like yeah, trusting that I would be okay either way, and like and the worthy and deservedness that came with that. So it was creating what I really needed for myself and what I desired and wanted in a partner, and getting crystal clear on that, and not so much like they have a job and like they are you know earning money and like, owning property or whatever. Like there are those things that maybe are going to be exciting and things that you want for yourself and your relationship. It just goes so much deeper than that.
So much deeper.
There's
so much
like
deeper.
lists and pages that you can come up with. And this isn't from a, what's the word? Like,
I know, I'm picturing the movie.
Yeah.
I'm picturing the movie. What
What
is that word?
Oh no.
It's not
like
ego, but it's
no.
Oh my gosh, what is the word?
Material. It's not a materialistic thing.
Yeah.
It's just getting clear on the kind of traits that they have. And it's funny too, quick side loop. I hear all the time about how, people just like are amazed at the kind of healthy, loving relationship that I have. And like, but I hear that little bit of like, oh yeah, it's possible for you, but not for me, maybe like that undertone. And it's like, yo, if nothing else, I want it to be known that it is possible for anyone.
Yes, agreed.
That if they desire that, right? Yeah. And so I think I had to overcome a lot of that. I had to put myself out there again and actually start to date, because the person of my dreams wasn't going to come to me when I was sitting on the couch watching Netflix.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, right? You have to get uncomfortable and like, and feel uncomfortable to get comfortable and have the experiences so that the type of person that you really want to be with. It starts to kind of etch itself out. Like if you think of like an ice sculpture or something, right? Like it starts as this big block of ice. And then as you chisel away and chip away and dive into these different pieces of yourself and of, the dating journey, then that's how you get this masterpiece and this real, like, very distinct vision of what that relationship looks like for you. Mm-hmm. And so there was that. And then a big like piece of it before I even met my partner was starting to attract and be on the same level as the types of people I had always desired to be in relationship with. But even in the dating space, I had been limiting myself. And it was a little scarier to actually go for the guys that I believed I could have and the type of person I really wanted. So it took like tons of vulnerability and getting uncomfortable. And like, spoiler alert, it wasn't the first guy that like was finally more in line with me that became my person. It was a few more of those. Yeah. And it was taking a pause from dating at a time to do that work on myself and falling back in love with myself. And all of these pieces came together. And then, I don't care how cliche it is, how much, maybe I've watched too many chick flicks, but I fucking love them. And it's true. It is more easy and effortless when you've found your person. I swear the games end like when you know yourself, you know what you want, you know what you will stand for and what your boundaries are, it all lines up. And when you believe and your worthy and deservedness, which like you totally are, then it all comes together.
Well, when you say it turns into a should, it goes from a should to a knowing. Like when you know, you don't ask should, you just do it. It's like, do I want to text him? Yep. Do I want to go see him?
Exactly.
Yep. It's when it goes, should I? I remember thinking the same thing when I met Brandon. It was like, there was no games. There was no like, well, he's got to text me now and then I'll text him later. It was just like easy and effortless. Easy and effortlessness. I think what I would like to go back to, because thank you, number one. I remember lots of the parts of that story so much. So, makes me a little emotional. Like that moment when you were like, okay, I know that I deserve more and I'm not settling. And the fear and the shit that came up with choosing you. How the fuck did you do that?
That's a really, really good question. And I think, are you speaking to like the beginning or that middle part?
The beginning. You were like, I believed in something deeper. I believed in like a deep love, and you knew you didn't have it and you knew that it was possible. and you were wired to want it. That's what you said. And to make that decision of choosing you, despite all of the things, like that's not an easy decision. Like if someone were listening and is in that exact same spot, how did you do it?
That's a great question. I think a couple of things, like, okay, so yeah, especially for people listening right now, it started out with me not thinking it's possible. So it started out with like, well, how could I do that? Like not knowing it's possible, but here's what I know now. What was happening was that the first inclination that, oh, it could be different. Like I remember a person saying to me, well, you're engaged now, like that's it, like kind of thing. And I remember in my head going, well, no, that's not it. Like I always have choice. Like I always believed deep down, nobody was going to confine me to some restriction or some box or something. So I would say like that almost like a challenge, but it just challenged my beliefs, right? And when your beliefs, if you're sitting there, you're listening and like your belief is stronger than the other outside voices, that's a brilliant way to know like, yeah, this isn't working for you. It was having the support, I will say, like, and hey, my support looked like specifically family. If you're sitting there and you don't have that, or you don't feel comfortable, there's outside sources and ways to get that support, like mentally, emotionally, and all those pieces. And like, again, I think it came down to, I remember there was a moment where it was just like, I remembered all the things that I had survived and overcome and thrived after, and things that like proverbially seemed harder or more difficult. And this felt fucking difficult. Let's not downplay that at all.
Yeah.
But it was just like, okay, I've done this before. I can do it again. And I just knew that choosing myself was always going to trump staying in something that could have been okay and could have been mediocre. Because I don't think it's in our wiring to stay in that comfort zone. I don't. Like, I know that we have that, and there's unconscious and consciousness and all the things. I just really truly believe like, yeah, there was so much more out there and possible.
I love it. I feel like it's that fuel, it's that hope, it's that inner knowing that just like, you kind of wonder like
where's that come from?
Yeah. Where does it come from? But it's just this, like, it's a power that each of us have on the inside, each of us have. And I think what I would connect it back to, it's like you said, like trusting yourself and knowing that you're going to be okay and knowing you always have choice, but you led with desire. And here you are, however many years again, clicked into desire, clicked and admitted to the fact that, yes, you do want to explore the journey of motherhood, and just even being lit up by that desire and what is possible is, and then hearing you say, I know that I have always thrived every time I choose me. Like, that's what you're saying. Every time you have chosen you, you have thrived. And I think we tend to, you and I have been in the world of personal development for many years.
Yeah.
We have a phenomenal community that we're a part of. And again, I go back to community. I think it is
Fuck yeah.
I think it's like an absolute pillar to the work. But what I was going to say is yes, you thrived, but don't think for a second that it wasn't difficult, right?
Oh,
it's just the way
decision,
right?
Because
go.
I need to say this.
Yeah.
This is important, because I think this is something that women especially might be listening to right now and in the same boat. I wasn't cheated on. There was no infidelity. There was no physical abuse. Like, it wasn't like, it was like, oh, well, that happened, so for sure I'm out, which I think makes it that much harder for women to choose themselves, because we've been taught or conditioned that you leave if something is wrong, or, and like, well, it could, like, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Well, it, like, what about choosing you and like not needing there to be some catastrophic kind of dramatic play? Like, imagine what it would be like to choose yourself. And yeah, scariest, hardest decision to make, that conscious decision. I knew I could regret it the rest of my life, but it was better to risk that and be on my own and know I would survive and thrive on my own than to be in something I wasn't happy with the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing when we look, we listen to these stories of all of the women that have come on the show to share their stories. And I always kind of think to myself, what's the one thing, we always hear the after, right? We always hear the after. We don't talk about our pain while we're in it. And that's for many reasons, right? Because number one, respect. Number two, not everybody deserves to hear our story when we're in it.
Totally.
And it is for us to experience. And so I always think it's important to share along the lines of you going through all the things that you did. It's not like you did it alone.
No, I was never alone.
Right. And I think that's the biggest, that's resourcing. We have been potentially conditioned as a society to not resource, or if we do resource, like, what does it mean to resource or for asking for help? And I know that every mom I've asked on this show, if they were to go back and tell their younger self, like, what would you tell your younger self? They would say, 9 times out of 10, they said, I would have asked for help. So I'm going to ask you, if you were to go back and tell your younger self, not so much after leaving that relationship, because you were locked in and loaded, you knew that that's what you were doing, but in between that relationship and finding your partner, what would you go back and tell yourself knowing what you know now?
It's interesting because this is actually, it's going to relate to my whole life, but then especially that period is the opinion of yourself is what matters the fucking most.
Yes.
Not any Tom, Dick, or Harry, not any Sally, any Joe, any Mary. Like, your opinion is gold. And if you can continue to thrive and grow your own opinion of yourself and always come back to that, that is what matters. Yeah.
Yes, queen. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we need to come back and do more.
I'd love to.
So continue to keep us posted on your journey
Yeah.
of desiring. And I would love for you to share with our listeners, if they want to follow you and join in and kind of connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, for sure. So I love to hang out on Instagram is my jam, and I'm at Dani Reaume. I'm sure it can be put in the show notes or whatever.
I'll put it in there for sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Great space. And thank you so much for having me. I just have to say, I think it is imperative. Like, I have to say this. I feel like it is a gift, and I am blessed. Oh God, the emotional part. This has happened in other areas of my life, and now through motherhood, like, having these resources and you and this community you have built and everyone that's a part of it. And now I get to, and other women get to step into motherhood, having this place to be able to not do it on their own, be able to be given the power and empowerment to do it their way, and to just like thrive in motherhood. And like, thank you so much for bringing this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm taking it all in. Thank you. Thank you for expressing and for sharing yourself. I can't wait to have you back. And
me too.
Thank you so much, love.
Thank you.